Hi guys, Samantha from Jessama Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you how to create a Lariat necklace using the faux red tiger eye sheets that we made in the previous video. So here are the sheets that we have left, and you also want the leftovers as well because we're going to be using it. And here are the cabochons that we made in the last video, so you can see what it's ultimately going to look like. So if you want to have a look at that and how to make the faux red tiger eye, have a check in the previous video, and this is what you will learn how to make. So let's get started. Now, first thing is you need to choose the sheets that you want to use because we're going to be doing a double-sided donut, but we're only going to be able to use 2 sheets. So I want to use these 2. So I'll put that aside. Then you also want a circle that's going to be able to cut out your pieces. So I'm just going to bring over my circle, and then this is going to be the smallest one inside, so I'm going to use this size. Okay, so you've got those chosen. Now you can use any shape you want. You don't necessarily have to make it a circle, because you can use a square, you can use a triangle, anything that you can put a hole in will do for this. Okay, now I'm just going to gently stretch this a little bit, and I just want to see how thick it's going to be. It's not going to be thick enough, so I'm going to use this sheet that we have left. Since I'm not going to use it for anything else, I'm going to place that over here. Okay, and place that over as well, because we're going to need a thick-ish donut. So what I've done is I've just used this one instead of using the leftover clay here, and that's because we're not going to be using it, and you need it to be fairly thick. So these were all on the middle section of my pasta machine, which is around 2mm thick. So this is around 8mm thick at the moment. Okay, now you want to just bring over your circle cutter, and then you want to position the little one in the middle before you cut. Okay, cut out your middle first, and then cut out your outside. And it's best to do these both at the same time, because then you're not going to get any distortion, because if you cut out the middle first and then you take that cutter out and then you cut out the outside, it's going to squish the middle inwards. So it's best to keep both of those cutters in at the same time. Then I'm just going to turn to make sure that I've got a nice clean cut, and I'll do the same for the inside. Just turn, make sure I've got a nice clean cut. And then I'll lift away this excess. And then I'll just use a blade to pick that out. Okay. And then I'm just going to smooth it. Okay. Now just bring it over a blade and gently pick that up. Now I'm just being very careful, and I'm busy getting rid of these little bits of clay that were left over from the cutter, and that's fairly easy to get rid of. Okay, and then I'll use my little finger to do the inside here. Okay, and then just get rid of all of that. Okay, now that's the back, and we want to tend to this back because we want to take our finger and we want to run it along these edges, because this is our back, and when you cut it, it's going to have a lot more of a jagged edge than the front. So this is the side that we're going to be putting resin on, and the other side I'm going to put liquid clay on. because the side that has, so if you look at these edges, they're not as kind of beveled in as the side where you cut the cutter straight down. So this is the ideal side for the resin, because the straighter the cut, the better when it comes to resin, because then it doesn't go down the sides. I'm just busy gently smoothing off these edges so it doesn't have a really sharp edge to it. But this is the side that we're going to be putting resin on because it's the best side for it. And the other side is going to be the back. So you just need to take a little bit of time to go around with your finger and smooth it off. And then you can bring your cutter over and use that along the edges as well to help it. Bring in the other one. And then we'll smooth off. There we go. And so that side will look quite nice now too. Okay. And I'll just check the other side again. Just get rid of all those little bits and pieces. Don't want those sticking. I'm just busy trying to get it nice and equal on both sides. And then when I'm somewhat happy with that, I can bring in my blade and just trim away any excess that's in there. So that these sides are nice and straight. And then just bring that in, and that's not for cutting anymore. And then just smooth off the edges with your outside cutter, and smooth off the edges inside here with this cutter. And I'll repeat on this side. Just smooth off those edges. Okay. And then just use your finger to gently smooth off any fingerprints that you might have. And then you would pop this in the oven for a full hour at Primo's recommended temperature. Okay, so now we need to make the other parts of the necklace. So if I bring over this other one that I've made, let me just bring that over quickly. Here we go. If you have a look at this one, we've got the main piece, which is this donut. Then we have a end cap. We've got some real pieces, which I'm going to use. I'm going to be using some real red tiger eye. And for fun, we might incorporate some gold tiger eye as well. And then we've got these end pieces as well. So this we are going to make now. And we're going to use the leftovers that we have. Now, I'm not going to try and keep the original tiger eye pattern because that's not really feasible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these leftovers, and most of this is metallic. We have a few pieces of black and translucent in here, but for the most part it's metallic. So we're going to create something cool with it. So I've rolled it up into a ball, and now I'm busy rolling it into a log. And what I want to do is I want to create an interesting swirl sort of a pattern. Okay. Then I'm going to roll that flat. I'm just going to roll that through the pasta machine on my thickest setting. Yeah, and that's widened it. Okay. Now I'll just trim off the end. Okay. And I'm going to take a small piece from each end and I'm going to swirl it into a spiral shape. And we're going to make a whole bunch of these and fit them together like a sheet almost. So you're going to make a sheet of these basically. So just carry on taking pieces and putting them together, and this will give it an interesting pattern. And because we're basically using the same colours that we used in the tiger eye, it's going to match even though it's a completely different pattern. And so just continue piecing those together until you've used up your entire sheet here. Okay, so I've made a bit of a sheet over here, and so I'm just going to quickly roll that and we'll see how it looks. Because when using leftovers you often don't know exactly what it's going to look like, so sometimes it's best to try out a few different effects before you make your final decision. Okay, so there we go, you can see what that looks like now. It's very hard to see what it looks like when it's not flat. So that's quite an interesting effect. I probably will use that, so I'm just going to take a piece off of here and then I can continue creating that sheet if I want to. But I also want to make a marble. Okay, so I'm just going to cut off pieces. There we are. We'll just take that, kind of pop it together like this so that we create an interesting mix. And the effects on this are going to be very slight. These pieces are just supposed to match with the piece. They're not supposed to be the part that draws your eye. So you want something that's subtle. Okay. Then we're going to roll that out. Twist a bit. And then between these two we can decide which one we want to use for our project. And I'm just twisting it a little bit to give it a little bit more of an interest when we marble it. There we go. Now I'm just going to squish this back up, and this will distort the lines as well, which is quite nice. Okay, oops. Then I'm just going to flatten out this one corner. And then I will roll flat. There we go, you can see it's a very subtle but pretty marble. Okay, I'm going to run this through my thickest setting. Now I'm going to take it down 2 settings and run it through again. There we go, to flatten it out. Now see it, there are a few air bubbles, so I'm just going to slice and smooth any bubbles. Okay, and this is the side that I'm going to use. So we've got those two, and so we might actually use both of them because that's also quite interesting. So we could do two of these with this technique, one of these with this technique, and then the actual bead cap with that technique as well. So we can do that. So I'm just going to continue finishing off this sheet, and then we can start creating our other components. Okay, so here is the sheet now that I've finished, and I quite like it. It's a very interesting look, but it's quite dark as well because, well, mica powders have two sides, and so this is going to be the darker side of the mica powders. Well, this will produce the lighter side of the mica powders. So if you go and watch my mica shift tutorial, I explain that in depth. So if you look here, you can see the side is quite dark. So if I put that right back next to my sheet, you can see that it's quite a bit darker because you're seeing the edge of the mica particles rather than the actual flat disc. So the mica particles is a disc, you have the flat side, and then you have the edge. The edge is the darker side, and that's what you're seeing here, and then this is producing the flat side by flattening out. So this one you're seeing mostly the edge of the discs, and so that is why it's going to give you a darker appearance. So anyway, if you want to know more about that, I do have a tutorial on mica shifts, and I go quite in depth into that. So anyway, now we are ready to start creating our findings. So I just want to trim up any excess bits that are around here. And I'm very careful with this blade. This blade, since I'm not trimming canes, is actually one of my more blunt ones that I've been using for around 7 years, so that when I'm taking stuff off of the blade, it's not too sharp. Because I don't need really sharp slices at the moment. If I am busy cutting a cane, I generally have a much sharper blade, and then I'm very careful. I don't put my hand anywhere near the edge of the blade. So in case any of you are cringing because my hand's coming really near to the blade when I'm taking off these pieces, don't worry, it's very blunt. Okay, there we are. So we have some little bits and pieces that are left, and so we'll use this to create our first end bit. So this is the end bit that we're going to be making. So what you want to do is you want to work out what size you want, and so we're going to be using suede, and so it doesn't need to be too big. Let's see, what size is this? So it's about 1.5 centimeters long, and at its widest point it is about 0.5 centimeter wide. Just so that you know the measurements at home. Just grab that, roll it into a ball so it's nice and compact, then roll it into a cylinder, and I'm just going to pop that on here. And I'm going to cut a path for it so that I can wrap. And this is a fairly loose wrap, I'm not worrying too much about it. And this is why I am using less clay than I need, because we're going to be adding some clay by popping this on. Okay, then just roll it around in your hands to smooth out any seams and things. And not having to worry about keeping the pattern exact really helps. Okay, then pinch one end. So when you wrap it, you have two ends where the sheet meets, so it'll be that end and that end when you wrap it. So you'll get this little end over here. Hopefully the camera will be able to pick up that it's got a little bit of a pucker mark over there, and then the stripes are going down towards another little mark. So you want to pinch right above that mark, so the sway is going to be going in there, and your pucker mark is going to be right on the end here, and that makes it a lot less visible. Okay. Now I'm just going to roll this out, and I like the end to be fairly thin. And we're going to be coating these with liquid clay. So I'm not worrying too much about fingerprints. I'm trying to keep the fingerprints to a minimum, but I'm not stressing about it. So I'll just put it on the table or tile. And I'll just press down so that we've got a nice end over here. So it's somewhat flat, but it's also got a round, it's kind of rounded, but it is a flat spot over here. It's not all around. Okay, just smooth away any fingerprints you have. Make sure you're happy with that shape. It's kind of like a, I guess it's kind of like a cone shape. Just make sure you have a nice flat spot there, because that's where we're going to be drilling our hole to fit our suede in. Because I drill my hole instead of poking it when it is raw, and that is your piece. And then you'll make another one of those with this sheet. Then you'll make another one using this sheet, and now we're going to make our bead cap. So let me just trim this in half, because we're only going to need half. Okay, and so I'm going to use this wooden mandrel, and this was basically a long stick of wood that I bought from Bunnings, and then my dad cut it up with his saw into these nice lengths, and this is what I use to make bead caps. Now the actual diameter of the circle is about 1/2 centimeter, so the inside of our bead cap will be about 1/2 centimeter, including, let's see, how thick is this at the moment? I'd say it is around 1 millimeter, so it will be 1 millimeter around, so it'll be about, it'll be roughly, after you've shaped it and everything, it'll be about 6 millimeters in diameter, but the inside will be 5. Okay, now you want to trim your sheet to size. You want a nice straight edge, and then you want to figure out how wide your bead cap is going to be. Doesn't have to be too wide, but you want to know that it's going to fit your findings. So if I, hopefully if I just gently pull on that, you can see that there are findings in there. I use ribbon crimps, so you want to make sure that it is going to fit those crimps that you're going to put on. So my piece, or my bead cap, is going to be around 1 centimeter. So I'll just bring it over. So it's about there. I'm just getting a rough idea of how wide it needs to be. There we go. By the way, this is a nice way to use leftovers when they're metallic. It looks quite nice. I'd make a pendant out of this. Okay, and just trim that edge. And now, because this is wood, it's not going to stick, so you might encounter a little bit of frustration when it comes to this. So if I go quiet and I don't talk for a little while, that is because I am concentrating, because it doesn't automatically stick to the wood. So I'm going to bring it around and gently mark where I have to cut. Okay. And I'll bring that seam around, and I'm not worrying about fingerprints at the moment. That I can fix. First off, we're going to be coating this with liquid clay, and the liquid clay is really nice because it hides any slight imperfections that you have, like fingerprints or a slight ding. It's not going to hide big ones because it's not very thick. Resin will hide fairly large ones, but the liquid clay gives you a little bit of room to move when it comes to fingerprints. Now what I'm doing is I'm just busy smoothing off the seam. I don't want to be able to see this seam. So I'm just gently pressing along the edges right over here until when I shine the light on it, I can't actually see any disturbance in the pattern because of lines. Now place your finger on top of here and just use your blade to gently tap that back into place because it's going to get a little distorted. And then smooth off any fingerprints that you can. Okay, then bring it right up to the top. Okay, and what I'm doing is I'm busy making a mark of where I have to trim. And I'm just going to use a Kemper cutter to trim that out because it trims it pretty nice and straight, and it's basically the right size, so I like to use that one. And that's going to be your little cap that sits on top. Okay, and then hold your fingers down here so that it's not, the piece that you already have on here isn't going to slip down, and gently tap this on so that it's stuck there. And then use a craft knife to gently trim around to get rid of excess bits and pieces. You don't have to be too exact with this because we are going to be smoothing it off, so if you don't get a nice round shape, don't worry too much. There we go. You can get a nice round shape, that's best, but we're going to be fixing up any edges now. Go around with your finger and smooth. Now, because you have this cap on the top, you can smooth down the edges without worrying about it running off. Now all I'm doing is I'm just smoothing down the sides to get rid of any fingerprints. Now this is a little longer than I want because it's been stretched a little bit. And so while it's on here, because it's easier to do, I'm going to just rotate and trim. There we go. That's easy enough to do. And it should come off the wood fairly easily. Then just tap on the top to flatten out the base. And there is your bead cap. Nice. Well, not bead cap, I guess, end cap. Nice and easy. Now, it's not as wide as this one, because this one was a little bit too wide, but it is about the same length. So, I'm just gently going to press that back into shape. I distorted it just a little bit, so you can pop it back on and fix any imperfections that you see. But that's basically it. I'm just going to fuss with it a little bit now. You don't really need to see that. And so what I'll do is, because I want it to keep its nice round shape, I'm going to just fix up these edges because it's kind of got a little bit of a skirt around here where it's kind of going out. I'm trying to get it all straight, and I'll trim around the edge again. And then I'll keep it on this little mandrel, and I'll take a piece of leftover clay that's not nice, stick it on like that, and then pop it in the oven like that, and that will help it keep its nice round shape. And I'll pop these in with it, and I'll put those all in for a full hour at Primo's recommended temperature. And then when they come out, we can give them a nice light sand, coat them with liquid clay, and then the other piece that's already in the oven, that we can start putting some resin on, but I do want to put some liquid clay on the back first. So I'll finish these ones up, and then I'll show you what to do to finish them off. Okay, so while those are in the oven, this one has finished baking, And so now I just want to give it a quick sand. So I'm going to use my 400 grit sandpaper, and I'm just going to sand both sides and the edges. And I'm going to sand from my 400 grit all the way up to my 8000. And this will give me a nice finish on this. It will get rid of any imperfections that I might not be able to see. It will get rid of any extra microparticles that came off of the clay and have been placed in the wrong spot. So it will just give me a nice flat surface for me to place liquid clay and ice resin on. So liquid clay on one side, ice resin on the other, and it will just be better that way. Okay. Now we're going to need to drill a hole in one side, because if you look over here, I do have a hole over here where I need to drill. I actually cut that out, but I've decided that drilling it is probably going to be a neater way of doing it. So we're going to drill a hole, but we'll do that after we've put the finishes on, because ice resin can spill into that hole and cause problems. Liquid clay can spill into that hole and cause problems, and so if you're going to drill an extra hole, it's definitely best to do it after you put the finishes on. The hole in the donut is unavoidable because, well, I can't drill something that big. But if you can avoid it, avoid drilling holes until you've put your finish on. Okay, now give this a good sand, and then we can finish it off. Okay, so now that it's been sanded, it's got a nice light satin sheen to it, and so this is going to make it much nicer when we put the resin on. So this is the side I'm going to be putting the liquid clay on, because personally, well, I'm not sure, both sides are nice, I guess. I'm going to put the liquid clay on this side, just because it's, by the slightest of margins, my least favourite side. But you could put liquid clay on both sides, or you could try resining both sides. It takes a lot longer and it is a little difficult, because if you get a resin spill and it goes onto the other resin, it's just a little bit harder. But I'm going to do liquid clay on one side, which is this side, and resin on this side. So if you want to see how to do the liquid clay on this and on the other components that I have, you can have a look on Patreon on the $5 level, and I have a tutorial on there. If you want an in-depth tutorial on how to coat polymer clay with liquid clay for a varnish, I would recommend Debbie Crothers' liquid clay tutorial. She goes quite in depth on the subject, and I hear that it is a good tutorial. So I'll provide a link to both of those in the links below. So in the meantime, I'm going to go coat this with liquid clay. Okay, so now we're going to be doing resin. So I've got my resin mat ready for my piece that now is cool. You can see how lovely that liquid clay has made it. It looks really nice and shiny and glassy, and so that's going to be the opposite end. This side you can see is not very clear, so I'll just pop that off to the side for the moment, and we're going to work with ice resin. Now I'm going to be using this ice resin plunger. Okay, and this is going to help me measure out my resin nice and evenly, because the ice resin, unlike UV resin, it requires you to mix 2 parts equally to form the resin that is going to ultimately cure on your bead. So the plunger helps a lot. So I'm just going to push a nice amount into here. I don't want to pour too much, it should be enough, but I do want enough that I will be able to cover my entire donut generously. So I'll just pop that away. And then I'll just use this skewer to mix it up. Now my tile's a little warm from me doing the liquid clay, so I'm popping this ice resin over it, and this is going to warm my resin up, which will help prevent bubbles, but it will also cure it faster, so just keep that in mind. When it's nice and cold in the middle of winter and it's like freezing, your ice resin will take around 45 minutes to start curing. It will start becoming too hard to use at around the 45-minute mark. Summer, when it's really hot, you'll have about 15 minutes before it gets too hot. So a nice tip to warm it up, if you just want to warm up a small amount, is to just gently heat your tile and then, you know, pop your resin cup over it and the bottom will warm up, and that will help heat your resin just a little bit so that it makes it a little bit more fluid. And so I'll mix this for maybe around a minute or so because it is nice and, you know, it's kind of like runny honey. Nice. Mix it for around a minute until I'm happy that it's completely mixed in. Then I will let it rest so all these bubbles can rise to the surface. Then we can pop it on our bead. Okay, so I've let the resin sit for a little while, so I'm just going to scrape it off my skewer and pop it off to the side. And I'm just going to use this nice long tube of acrylic, makes kind of a straw, so that I can blow away these bubbles. You can use a blowtorch if you want to, but I've had a bad experience or two from the blowtorch by accidentally setting my resin alight, and so I prefer to use a straw. So just blow lightly. And that will get rid of a lot of the bubbles that have risen to the surface. And we can get rid of more once we've popped it on our bead. So there, pop it on the bead onto our tile. And now I want to be careful because we don't want resin spills. Just pop a little bit on at a time. And you can see how different the resin's going to make this side look. Because the minute you put it on, it looks absolutely beautiful. So what I like to do is I like to put a tiny bit on, enough for me to just smear it across the surface of my donut. Because the hole in the middle here really does attract the resin. I've had a lot of cases where the resin spills out from the hole and down, and it's not great because it's hard to get rid of those spills. They cause trouble and it's just irritating. So it's best to just slowly and carefully spread your resin over and then add a few drops to get that nice domed effect. Yeah. And you can see how beautiful that looks. I'm just going to add a few drops just to get domed. And then any leftover resin that I have, I can use that on some other projects that I have in the works. So resin never goes to waste. Okay, so that should be enough. Let me just look at it. Yeah, I don't want to risk overflowing it because then you don't get dome at all and then you get a mess as well. Now I'm just going to use my straw to get rid of any bubbles we have. There we go. And now a nice thing about the mica clay is if you have bubbles in your resin and they're the really tiny micro sort that you can't see, that you see only in some of the clear resin examples where it's like almost a window. The nice thing about the metallic clay is because it's got kind of a speckled appearance to it because of the metallic particles, you can basically not see those bubbles. So if you have tiny bubbles in your resin, don't worry. Even if you don't manage to get them out of the resin, you basically can't see them on the metallic clay because just the properties of the metallic clay hides the resin bubbles. Okay. And now here's the exact same example of clay done with the liquid clay. And you can see how much more shiny that resin is. It's quite a difference. Now I'm just going to quickly buff this with my t-shirt just to get as shiny as I possibly can. There we go. You can still see this brings out the colour so much more. But you can't use, it's very difficult to use resin on a dome surface. So liquid clay is nice for dome surfaces, but as far as flat surfaces go, and you want a nice shiny glass finish, definitely go with the resin. But it's difficult to do it on both sides of the bead. So that's basically it for now. I'm going to go put this away for about 24 hours, and then when that is done, we can start assembling our necklace. Okay, so these are out of the oven. So check them over, see if they need a sand or anything, because these are a little bit difficult to sand and it's not really necessary. Yeah, I don't think these need a sand. I think they're fine the way they are. Okay, so this is fine. We're going to do liquid clay on that. These ones need to be drilled first. So I'm going to use a pin drill. I'm just going to grab the center here and I'm going to drill a hole. And now we don't want to be going the whole way through, we just want enough that we're going to be able to glue some cord into there. So let me just see how far we went. Go just a little bit further. And I'm also just making sure that the hole on the outside here is nice and big. Don't want it too big that it's going to be too big for the cord and the cord's going to stick out and you're going to have to put a lot of glue in there. But you want it big enough that it's going to fit the cord. So let's see. That should be big enough, but you can always expand it if you need to. And this is nice because you put that in and then you put the liquid clay on and then you can, it's helpful to have the drill holder. So that's one. I'll do the other two and then I'll put liquid clay on them. Okay, so our piece has finished curing. As you can see, what a beautiful glossy dome that has. And this is what the back looks like. So if you want to do a double resin, and resin this side as well, you can do that. Just be careful not to get the resin from this side on this side, because then it can cause problems. But I'm just going to do one side. So that's how it looks. Quite happy with that. And here are all our little pieces that are going to go with it. Now, I did have some resin left over and I was busy playing around with some experiments. Because I do want to start including a little bit of resin in our tutorial. So here are two experiments that I did to create kind of an underwater scene. And I'm quite happy with how they came out. I need to play around with it a little bit more, but it looks pretty nice and I'm quite happy with it. So here's what the backs look like and here's what the fronts look like. So that's what I did with the leftover resin. Now, I'm not sure if I've shown this in many tutorials, but when you have your ice resin, don't just take the skewer, clean it off and put it away. It's better to leave it in the cup and if you can, leave it on its side so that the resin sticks to the skewer really well. Then when it's finished curing, gently press around the cup to get the resin to release. And then you can pull out all the excess resin inside there. So your cup you can now go and use again. And this is nice because it means that you don't have to go and constantly buying more cups, because the cups are more expensive than the skewers. Oops. And to be honest, you can just, you know, trim off one end and now you can use the skewer again. So that's what I do with my leftover resin. And so now we're going to proceed to carry on with our project. So you're going to need a drill and you want to decide where your thing's going to hang. So I think I want it to hang there. I like it there. Okay, so I'm gonna actually need to drill on this side. Okay, I want to drill fairly close to the side. And I'm just going to, whoops, drill down. And drill through the other side, come around to the other side, drill back through to make it all nice and neat and tidy. Okay, there we are. Okay, so I'll put that to the side and I'm going to bring it over my other drill bit, which is a bit bigger because I need a bit of a bigger hole, and I'm going to drill. There. So I start with a smaller drill and I work way up to a larger drill, and it's just easier to do it that way. Keeps everything nice and neat and tidy. Okay. Alright. Now I'm going to bring over my bead cap, and we also need to drill a hole in this one. So I'm going to position it right at the top and drill straight down. There we go. Now just clean that hole by running your drill bit through it a few times. And there we are, we've got all our pieces ready. Okay, so we're going to work with suede today. And I'm going to bring over the colours that I've chosen. And I get these off of eBay, so you can go and choose a few colours off of eBay. I'm also thinking of starting to stock these on my shop. So if you guys want me to stock the exact colours that I'm using in my tutorial on my shop, Jessama Design, please let me know and I will get around to doing that as soon as I can. There we are, you can see that matches quite nicely on both sides. So you're going to trim a length of about 20 centimetres. And I'm going to be doing, let's see, I think 1 from the brown and 2 from the red. So 20 centimetres from each, and then another 1 from the red. Okay, so I've trimmed each of those. So now you're going to grab one end and you're going to make sure that it's going to fit nicely inside here. So let me see, that's as far as I can get it down, so I want to see how far that goes in. So if it doesn't go in far enough, grab your drill and just hollow out the inside a little bit more. And these take a little while to dry because we're going to be using E6000. So let's see, I want to get about that much in. There we go. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So, grab that. And my E6000, I'm going to just quickly open that up. And now you're going to have this little bit on the end that's dried. You need to get rid of that before you continue. Okay. And I'll bring over a skewer. Just going to squeeze. Now I've got to be careful because it takes a little while to come out, but once it comes out it really comes out quick and fast. There we go, just needed a little bit of coaxing. Okay, grab a bit on the end. And now this bit can get a little messy, and we'll clean that up in a little while. Just get as much of that glue to that hole as you can and scrape away the excess. And I'm just going to wipe a little bit of that glue on the edge here. Then I'm going to coax that cord inside. Okay, and you can even use your skewer to help it go in. You can grab the end of your skewer push it in. Okay. Then gently clean up the mess that's left. You can wait until it's dry to do that. And then repeat that with the other 3 cords and let them dry for around 10 minutes. Okay, so the next step while we're waiting is to take a copper jump ring. Oops. Just open that up. And pop that through our donut. Easy. Okay, and that will be ready for later because we're going to need that. Okay, so now we can bring over the strands, and now you need to be careful with them because the E6000 preferably dry it for at least 12 hours before you even try wearing something, because it needs that long to be nice and strong. So I'm going to be very careful with it. So I'm going to bring over some copper crimp ends. And I'm going to see how many of these I can fit in here. Only one. Okay. And we're going to bring over our bead cap, and I'm going to see how that looks. Looks good. And this is what I'm going to use to finish off our cord ends. But we're going to hide these. These are quite ugly, but it's very easy to hide them, and that is why we were making a end cap, because you don't really want these on the end of your necklace. I mean, we're going to have 3 of them all next to each other, and it's just going to look a little silly. But they're really easy to use. You just squish down one end and squish down the other, and you do this for all 3 of your strands. Okay, and for the next step I'm just going to use an eye pin, and I'll just open that loop, and I'll grab one red one, one brown one, and the other red one. Whoops, and just be careful it doesn't slide off that loop. Okay, then I'll close that up. Bring over my cap, and now you need to just organise these into such a way that they'll be able to fit in your cap. There we go. And what we can try to do, there we go, bring it up as far as I possibly can, bend, trim away what I don't need, and then make a nice round loop. There we go. And then I'm just going to open that loop, bring over my donut jump ring. This is a little tricky because this wire for the headpin's nice and hot. There we go. There we go, that's nice and easy. And then I'm just going to gently untangle these cords because they can get tangled fairly easily. And I'll thread them through. And that's your necklace. Nice and easy. Now, these cords have been wrapped up a little while, so ideally what I'm going to do is I'm going to, before you wear it, you'll want to let it hang for maybe a week or so, because the cords over here need to straighten out a bit, so you can see it's a little bit crinkled because you want it nice and straight. But that's quite nice, and these need to cure for at least 12 hours before you even start wearing them, but it's going to look really nice. So I had photos at the beginning of the tutorial, so you'll know what this looks like already. So I do hope that that tutorial is helpful to you. I did decide not to use the tiger eye there because I just decided that we've got enough, our cords are nice and long and we don't really need it. The other one, my cords weren't long enough, so that's how I replaced some of the space that I needed so that it could become a nice long lariat necklace. But I think it's better if you just have the end cap here, your cord and your little end beads. So that's basically it for this tutorial. I do hope that it was helpful to you and that you'll be able to use this technique and the design for different designs of yours. So please do post photos of what you do using this tutorial. I always love it when you guys post photos, it's really cool. And please let me know in the comments what you thought about the faux tiger eye and whether you would like to see blue tiger eye. And if you would like to support me, I do have a Patreon account and I'll provide a link to that. I have a few different levels and I post tutorials every single month, so I'm sure you guys will enjoy that. And if you're looking for where I got my circle cutters, I have an Etsy shop, Jessama Design, and that's where I keep my cutters. I also have texture stamps and all sorts of things on there, so you guys can go and check that out. And as always, I will see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.